Booyakasha.
All right, buddy. Happy Wednesday.
All right. Happy Wednesday. Happy CPI day. Happy uh, more FUD from the current administration, which I welcome. Actually, I've
Well, I
I've
was I
I've
was
learned.
happy. I was happy yesterday when Biden tweeted that there's apparently crypto tax loopholes that I have been unaware of. Apparently,
I
some
know.
80-year-old geriatric dude knows more about crypto tax law than people that have been doing this for 10 years. It's amazing. It really is. The level of insight he has is truly remarkable.
That's right. And the best the best part about the message is that on it's going to land on one set of ears and minds that don't want anything to do with crypto, which the message is for. This is not to remember when a politician opens their mouth, they're not trying to affect change because they wouldn't last 10 minutes. They're just telling their constituents that they know that they already want to hear. Okay. So we understand this, and it works both ways. I'm not unfair here, but let's understand that when people that aren't participating in crypto and don't understand because they don't want to understand, basically, when they hear this, it just reinforces their existing beliefs. Okay, fine. Everybody's happy, and 24 hours from now, there'll be some new crisis factor having to do with either the banks or the economy or this. I'm telling you, this is just it's one thing, like the flavor of the minute to the next, to the next, to the next. This cycle will never stop as long as people are breathing, and that's just how it is right now. So
Well, let's
that's
get
my two
into,
cents.
yeah, we can get into this a little further, but let's take a look at the CPI number, which just came out. It was year over year, it came in at 5.5, is expected at 5.6. Uh, Inflation rate year over year, 4.9 versus 5% month over, so, it came in a little bit lower. Why do we care? Well, we care because in theory, if inflation is coming down, then the Fed will either pause or cut rate hikes. In theory, right?
In theory, that's right. So to touch on like why are people like us paying attention to this? It's because we understand that there are a statistically significant number of market participants of all types that are paying attention because the central bank rate policy tends to have lasting, or it tends to have broad-reaching influence. I won't call it impact. It's the impact is how people respond and the action they take after the rate decision or after the data point has been made public. The thing that I think is, or the thing that is driving, or hold on a second. I think the market's looking for a direction to go, and we've just been conditioned over the years now to look to things like central bank policy, meaning monetary policy and interest rate levels to pick a direction for quote unquote risk assets, meaning people putting money to work in the form of assets that ideally appreciate in value compared to the denominator, in this case the dollar. And what is probably most interesting here is that in the face of rising interest rate policy, meaning capital gets more expensive, Bitcoin has still outperformed for the most part to the upside, which is what a lot of people care about, is that it's going up and has gone up. But I think the thing I'm trying to get down to here is that there's in the inflation data has been at the core of the narrative and the talk track from the Fed Reserve governors and Chair Powell, is that as long as inflation, or if inflation is on the lips of the mass and people are worried about the economy and they're concerned about things getting too expensive, not being able to afford basics, things like that, then the Fed's mandate is to tame inflation, et cetera, and they wield the monetary policy wand in the form of rate increases or rate pauses or rate decreases as they tend to see fit. And at this point, what people were afraid of was that the Fed is going to continue to, the talk track was going to be moving into the year that inflation is too high and we must raise rates. And this causes problems in the system, as we've seen unfold in this new and exciting banking crisis that in its particular form. So circling this back around, why do we pay attention to things like this? Because we know that politically and otherwise, the people in the system that have the power to make the decisions about which way interest rate policy goes basically they're holding all the cards, they have all the keys, and they're largely going to determine where the biggest the largest sums of capital will now flow either into assets or out of assets. And the access to things like credit, this access to credit is a big deal, because the credit crunch is what really causes the pain to start trickling into the rest of the like everyday life for smaller businesses that don't have the ability to sell shares to raise capital. They have to borrow from smaller regional banks, which are banking crisis. Credit's going to get tight, maybe. So the point I'm trying to get to here, and to sum this up, is that what I think we're looking for here is for the tone and the narrative to change from the Fed, insofar as that if inflation is starting to look normal, like it's not raging out of control and it has started to subside a bit, then they can take their foot off the gas from a rate increase perspective and say we're gonna leave rates as they are, which means pause. I don't think we get to a cut unless something really gnarly happens, and which I don't want to happen, but I think that's what it would take at this point for them to quickly cut.
Yeah, it looks like Bitcoin's reacted, up a little bit, mostly flat. So, no earth-shaking moves here to start the day. So interesting to watch Bitcoin's reaction to this kind of stuff. Ultimately, long term, it's kind of irrelevant. But on a day by day and week by week basis, it's important to pay attention to, as this has become the story in all markets. So that's why we pay attention to this. And shifting on to the topic of the day was this tweet yesterday from President Biden, who says, "We don't have to guess what MAGA House Republicans value. They're telling us we think Congress should cut tax loopholes that help wealthy crypto investors." And what I think is interesting about this is, first of all, it's 100% horseshit, okay? There are no tax loopholes that help wealthy crypto investors. But something that's interesting about this is the community notes, okay? And this has gotten a lot of attention in the crypto community, because everybody's like, hey, look, can you tell us about these tax loopholes that we've all been, trying to find for 10 years? Of course we pay our taxes and, abide by tax rules, but if there's a tax loophole, a legal tax loophole, people are going to try to take advantage of that. But, what the note says is virtual currencies treated as property, and general tax principles apply to property transactions, using virtual currencies. When investors sell virtual currency, they must pay tax on any capital gain. There is no evidence of a loopholes to avoid this. So the President of the United States is this is a lie. I mean, this is a flat out, there are no tax loopholes. This is crazy to me. Like, they're coming out and flat out lying about this. Trust me, there are no loopholes, right? The loophole as a U.S. citizen that you can take advantage of if you want to relocate to Puerto Rico for 6 months out of the year is it. Other than that, there's nothing you can do. And even, it's funny because it's taxed as property, okay? And as property, and in real estate, you can do something called a 1031 tax exchange, which means you can defer taxes if you reinvest in similar or like kind property. So the idea that, if I sell Bitcoin and then reinvest in, more Bitcoin or another or Ethereum, in theory, I should be able to take advantage of a 1031 tax exchange and defer those taxes down the road. But that doesn't apply, even though it's taxed like property. So, there's no, I'm just telling you, there's nothing you can do to avoid these capital gains taxes on your crypto. And you got to pay attention to it. You got to track it. You got to report it. And 99% of us do. Why they've chosen to come out against crypto like this just tells you, here's what it tells me. It tells you that Bitcoin is about freedom and self-sovereignty and control of your own wealth. All right? People that are against this are, and this isn't political, but it's just true, overwhelmingly Democrat. So think about that for a second. If this technology allows you to have freedom over your own wealth, control over your own wealth, somebody coming against that wants the opposite. They want to control you. They want to control your wealth. They want to control what you do. And I think they've proven this time and time again. And the reason this is getting a lot of attraction is because these guys are flat out of touch, or they're flat out lying. One of the two.
How about both? This is a psyop, first of all, and it's they're cherry picking. Look, this is just politics. If people in politics know that you have to have very thick skin and that you're going to be attacked, and that's just the way it is. Like there's two things that come to mind. There's a great clip of Trump debating Hillary Clinton, and she thinks, or maybe this was orchestrated. I don't know. I don't know anymore. Okay, so conspiracy hat on that this was orchestrated exchange between the two. But in the gist is that Hillary says, well, Donald Trump, you used a particular tax loophole to avoid paying, or to take advantage of a tax line item in your tax return that allow you to write off a $916 million loss. First of all, this is supposed to be like a Main Street debate. So you've got all these people, these Main Street Americans who don't earn $1 billion a year and they work hard. They are forced to manage the supply and demand dynamics in the economy. They have to make decisions about like what they're going to buy, when they're going to buy it, how they're going to provide for their families. And yet Queen Hillary gets up in front of them and starts talking about how someone who's independently wealthy, Donald Trump, took advantage of a tax line item to where he was able to write off a loss. Okay, forget about the details for a second. He then very astutely points out that when Hillary was a senator, she didn't talk about this because of you see, this is political theater. It was a great video. You should just look it up and watch the exchange between them. And he, first of all, says, yes, I took advantage of it. He didn't deny it. Just like when I submit my tax, when I submit all of my expenses and all of my income and all the other things, all of the crypto trades that I made, Brad Sherman, okay, I submitted the documents and was able to take advantage of certain laws that you in Congress haven't changed. Just like when Donald Trump said, Hillary Clinton, you had a chance when you were a senator to change this law, but you didn't. So congratulations, because you know why you didn't? Because all of your wealthy donors would have gotten mad at you and they would have not donated and given you money. So you can parade around here and point the finger at him. Anyway, off my soapbox. No, but the point is, it reminds me of that. And the other thing is that this pointing very astute here, Biden administration, and what they're cherry picking to talk about how they're going to cut. What's it say? If you don't mind scrolling up just a hair on that page where it says in the graphic, it says versus think we should cut food safety inspection. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, insert cherry picked thing that is allegedly going to, we all know that nothing's going to get cut. The debt ceiling is going to get raised because it just will. Let me put it this way. I know better than to speak in absolutes. The only thing I know for sure is that nothing's for sure. So what I'm trying to get to here is that This is purely political. Nothing is going to change. It's frustrating as all heck, and that's I think that's the idea, is just to plant a seed like Inception. You say it's not possible, but every day of the week, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, we're getting ideas planted in our heads directly from the mainstream media, and this is no different. And the point I'm trying to really hone in on here is this is just noise. And I mean, my opinion is that it's shameful that anyone in elected office, especially in elected office, would. And I guess I get it from the Ginslers of the world and these other appointed jerks who didn't necessarily earn the vote of the people to get into their position. That's one thing. But here we have an elected official at the highest level of government here in our country is calling citizens tax evaders, and the same thing with Sherman getting up telling it like basically making an accusation. So anyway, I guess the rules don't, like, it's rules for thee but not for me. If I were to make such allegations, I could be sued for libel, and not have enough money to eat, and I could go live in a box somewhere under a bridge.
Yeah, here's another tweet from the Wolf of Wall Street. He said, "Dearest Joe, you took $5 million donation from Sam Bankman-Fried to support your campaign. When are you planning to return that FTX to creditors? It was, after all, money stolen from them." And so, these people are. It's very frustrating as somebody who's in this industry, because we see the benefit that it can have to American citizens and people all over the world. And then you open up Twitter and see the quote unquote leader of the free world flat out lying to people about what's going on. And I don't want to sugarcoat it, because that's what this is. This isn't like and I always get frustrated when I watch like pundits. I mean, when people lie, it's got to be called out, right? It's because that's what it is. It's a lie, and they're attacking this industry because it offers individuals a chance to control their own money, and they don't want that. They want to control your money. They know what's best for you, Ted. The government knows what's best, and shame on you for wanting to control your own financial destiny. And I agree. I think it's shameful, and I think it speaks to the level of one, incompetence at the highest level, and two, the tactics that these people will do to try to convince people to stay away from something that could be beneficial for them. And speaking of Brad Sherman, this guy is a snake. He is the worst of the worst. He says, there's fear of missing out. Peru is way ahead of the U.S. in cocaine production. China is way ahead of us in organ harvesting. We don't need to keep up on those things, and we don't need to keep up on crypto. So he's comparing crypto to cocaine production and organ harvesting. This is the most disgusting thing I think I've ever seen from a politician. That's saying a lot. I mean, it's unbelievable. And these guys need to be analyzed and questioned. Who's his donors? Who is this guy really working for? It's not the American people. It's not the people of California. This is ridiculous. I mean, it's flat out infuriating. But if you look at the comments, we're not the only ones saying this. And this guy, Coin Bureau, why is the majority of U.S. politicians that are feverishly against crypto have a D for Democrat in front of them? Because they want to control you. It's simple.
It's it's the donor base. Let's call us what it is. This is the Democrats are towing the party line, because the party line is their bags are filled with cash from lobbyists and donors. That's it. And as you get older, you learn these things, and you think, holy crap, what. Sherman doesn't. I truly believe that the Shermans of the world and the Pocahontases of the world, and look, does Biden really know what he's doing up there? Okay, come on, the dude's just reading the stuff off the card. Some some clown trying to make a name for themselves in DC. It writes this stuff and puts it in front of the like this is the world we live in. And here's the silver lining in my opinion. I'm trying to my coffee must be extra good today because I am excited. Well, initially I read this and my first instinct is to want to be frustrated, but then I realized, wait a minute, this is chaos creates opportunity. This type of gaslighting gets people like it triggers raw emotion, and that is what drives behavior. And what I'm excited for here is that I really, really am excited about this. That there are people in our space that believe in what we have, this opportunity that we have, and this whole crypto thing. Take how you feel about certain parts of it off the table for a second. It's largely an exciting, beneficial thing. I mean, take my excitement out of the picture for a second. This is the future, and whether you like it or not, it's here. It showed up. It's here. It's still coming. It's coming at us. All right, and there are lots of people that have been sitting on the sideline, either cognitively or intellectually or emotionally or financially, that are going to read stuff like this, and it's going to get them so fired up, man. They're going to be like, you know what? I'm not going to take this crap anymore, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to participate. I'm going to make this a better thing. And that's what I'm excited about, because that's what I see happening in response to this. And we get evidence of it in the Twitter feed. That's great. But I think what's also happening is in the real world, where people actually live. There are things, people are talking in person about these things. People are reaching out, asking. I mean, little old me, I get questions almost daily about people they're starting to peel back the layers of the onion. They want to go down the rabbit hole because they're starting to understand what this, the real threat, quote unquote, is to the control mechanisms and being able to keep people afraid so that they comply, all that great stuff. And by great, I mean not great. You understand my sarcasm there. But what's happening is people are realizing that this still is the land of the free, home of the brave, and I can take control, and I can be sovereign, and I can fight for my rights, and I can speak up. And as Elon Musk says, as long as we have freedom of speech, then we have everything else. And without freedom of speech, we lose everything else. So I think the most important thing to remember here is that, yes, the Shermans can get up here and talk for five minutes, or they get their 15 seconds, the flavor of the week. The good news is that the next flavor of the week tsunamis it over and it gets buried. And thank goodness we're a species with amnesia, because the next thing to come along will grab people's attention. But every time this cycle happens almost daily, but every day there are more and more people that get the wake up call that they need. And that's the magic here, in my opinion.
I think it's why it's important to learn about this stuff for yourself. And, it's like I said yesterday, a good proxy for understanding how all this works is to listen to what these people say and then do the exact opposite. Because they are not interested in your financial benefit. They do not care. It's not of interest to them. They're monkeys reading from a script, right? Their donors give them what to say, they give them money, and then they get up there and say it. These people are whores. That's it. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's what they are. We're supposed to have, elected officials that represent us and stand up for us and, do what's right by us. But these people, this is beyond that. I mean, I'm tired of people sugarcoating this stuff, because it is frustrating, Ted. It really is. And as somebody who's dealt with crypto taxes over the past 6-7 years and done everything in my power to be honest and report everything and pay all these taxes, look, I'm not an accountant, so hire an accountant and have him tell you this or her tell you this. There are no loopholes. You can't take gains and buy property and defer taxes. You can't. The only thing you can do is, if you have a loss, you can use that to offset other capital gains. And that's not a loophole. That's just how it works. There's no, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. On one hand, They come out and say crypto is terrible, there's no use case, and then they spend all this time talking about it. It's ridiculous. Like, so why are they
Yeah.
talking about it so much? They're talking about it so much because it is a threat to their way of doing things and their donors' way of doing things.
I have one other point to express because it is my right as an American to speak freely until someone shows up at the door with the black van and the suits and the earpieces to take me, to whisk me away like they did Julian Assange. So there is one, first of all, the president of the United States, no matter who it is, isn't the final authority on what is taxable, what is not taxable, and what the tax law is, and where the loopholes are. The loopholes that were legislated by Congress, quite frankly, and then put into the actual final authority on what's taxable and what's not. And the final authority lies with the IRS. And we as individuals, we don't, thank goodness, we don't rely on talking heads in the political system to tell us what is and is not a loophole and what is and is not legal and what we can and cannot do. There's a whole industry of hardworking professionals that are doing the right thing from one day to the next most of the time. The largest number of people are following the law to the letter. Just went through this, talked with my accountant yesterday, and followed every last rule under the sun, and which is what I pay, quite frankly, I pay for, is so that I don't have to be concerned about this. So circling this back around, thanks, President Biden, but I've learned not to listen to horse manure being thrown at me or even give it much of a second thought. And we are giving it several second thoughts here because we're talking about it for the benefit of others to understand that it's lies and it's deception in its purest form to say those things. But what we do know is that the IRS has the final authority, and the tax code it's large and it's cumbersome, but it is actually quite clear. And there are really skilled professionals. There are a lot of very, very skilled professionals in this world, domestically here, pertaining to the IRS code that have the knowledge and the know-how to tell me what I am legally allowed to do and what I am legally not allowed to do. And then we do that and we go about our lives and we laugh, hopefully, at the passing of the next administration or passing to the next administration, whoever that may be.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the reality of the situation is, look, the government takes no risk. They risk none of their own capital, and they take, 30, 40%, 20, 30, 40% of everything you make. It's a hell of a deal, right? But I just want to reiterate, when the president of the United States or some congressman gets up there and directly calls me and members of the community that I'm involved in and care about tax cheats and compares us to organ harvesters and drug dealers, there is going to be a reaction, okay? And your
Yes.
point is well taken. Maybe they want that reaction, but I don't think any self-respecting person that does abide by the laws is going to take that and get frustrated because, you're doing everything you can to abide by the laws and be a good player. So when, I hear that, the reaction is frustration. The reaction is, anger, because it is a lot of work to keep up with all this stuff. And, it just makes me further convicted in my beliefs in crypto and the industry and what this is doing, because the people that are leading this country right now, a lot of them, not all of them, are very corrupt. All right. And we're trying to build a system that can eliminate most of that corruption away, right? Because you don't need to trust these people to participate in crypto. Crypto is unique in the fact that you can own Bitcoin and not trust anyone. All right, and that's the power of it. These people can't control it, and therefore they want to demonize it. And by the way, not only it, but anybody participating in the industry. And I think that's wrong. And I think over time that'll be proven to be wrong. And these people will go away. They'll be voted out. They'll retire. Hopefully, although in politics anymore, I don't think anybody retires. I think they just hold on to these jobs and donations and whatever else they get until they're ready to move on to the next life. I think it's crazy. There was a great tweet somebody said that, what's the craziest thing that's happening right now that nobody's talking about? And the reply was the fact that we consider generally when people hit their 70s and 80s that their mental ability to think and their cognitive abilities are declined to the point where they can't be productive members of the society in general. Yet the majority of people in Congress and running this country are in their 70s and 80s. So there's 2 points there. One, they do not understand crypto. They don't. They flat out don't. They're it's not because they're older that they don't understand it, right? It's because they in their lives they were using the fax machine was a huge innovation. Okay, like they're not up to the technical capacities and abilities of what crypto is and what it is not. So they're really, I don't know.
The best thing about being a public, yes, it is frustrating. Please don't mistake my optimism about wanting to like be further emboldened to that I do not feel the same type of frustration. What I'm trying to get the last really great benefit of being in public office, especially in U.S. Congress or the House of Representatives, is that over and above being able to make laws that don't apply to you or that you can skip that you don't have to abide by, is that you get access to privileged financial information that allows you to make really heavy stock trades that others do not, and you get to buy and sell ahead of major news events like the elected officials in Congress that are making laws for us today that got to sell their SVB stock and then buy, or was it First Republic? They got to dump their SVB stock days before it cratered 80-90%. And they also got to buy JP Morgan stock ahead of the news that they were going to buy the assets. That is probably the best benefit. And I think that I'm going to now run for public office so that I can be a better stock trader.
Yeah, if you and I act on insider trading, we go to jail. If they do it, they get rich.
Yeah, ask Martha Stewart about what that process is like and how it worked out for her. The only issue with Martha Stewart is that she wasn't an elected official. She was a celebrity. That's the distinction. And that's even with all of her celebrity halo effect, she still went to prison.
Well, yeah, and I think this is a reflection of something that's larger than crypto in general, and that people are becoming more and more aware of the corruption involved in all politics. It's not partisan. And the question is, why do we listen to these people anymore? Problem after problem after problem gets created by these people, and for some reason we expect them to fix it. They have no incentive to fix it.
Talk about the definition of insanity right
yeah,
there.
Their checks get bigger. Our lives get worse, right? Like there's no incentive for these people to fix anything. And so, I think again, that's what got me into crypto. I looked at this as a alternative system, that I could participate in, that over time, I think more and more people will gravitate to. One, because it's better, and two, because the current system, the financial system, the political system, is so corrupt and so broken, right? And so, that's something that is encouraging, and will continue to be encouraging, even though they're going to fight it, right? And they're going to fight it because their system is dying, it's breaking, they know it is, that's how it's designed, and in the past there has not been an alternative. You just had to live within the system. Now there is an alternative, and that alternative they don't like. Not because it's better technology, not because it's better for the people. They don't like it because it prohibits their ability to control the system. And that is something that I think everybody needs to be aware of and always think about when you hear these people talk is, well, all these crypto people are saying that's not true. Okay, fine, believe it or don't believe it, but why are they taking this position? It doesn't make any sense other than, it's a threat to their current way of life and their current way of system, doing the system. So I don't know. I get frustrated with this. I try not to be frustrated. I try to stay neutral on this stuff, but it's really hard when somebody compares you to a drug dealer and an organ harvester.
On that point, you made a good point yesterday about projection.
Yep.
So think about all the politicians that are sitting there sweating, going, "Man, Brad Sherman's over there talking about drug dealers. I hope they don't
Yeah.
ever get wind of the stuff that I'm involved in." That's the kind of stuff that makes me chuckle. Is that they're very selective, and
Well, and it's
it's
always it's what's funny about that. Sorry to interrupt you, but like
no problem.
you laugh at that, but then 6 months later, you find out that Brad Sherman is, quote unquote. This isn't. I don't know. This isn't. I'm being funny. Like this is a joke, but that he's a big part of a organ harvesting organ. It happens all the time.
Hey, you know what? If people in public office are allowed to wield verbal or commit verbal atrocities, okay, with and say things like that, I think that our freedoms of speech. I think the freedom of speech applies to everyone.
Yeah, but
So
it doesn't. That's the scary part. That's why I had to preface this with it's a joke. I don't know because who knows? There are
that's a
rules for
good
the
point. I was that's
that's how it should be, Ted. But like the world we live in today, like they can say whatever they want, but the freedom of speech is very selective nowadays. And it shouldn't be, right? So anyway, I tend to get frustrated. You do a good job of trying to stay level headed. All this stuff. They're going to continue to say more stuff. It doesn't matter. It's not true. But find out for yourself. Do your own research. Get in there and see what they're talking about. And talk to your accountant. And your accountant's going to tell you that this is not true. So I've asked. I mean, I've tried to find anything that I could do to offset gains. To minimize my tax liability. There's not a whole lot. Like I said, the only thing I think you can do is if you have losses, you can offset those losses against other gains. But if you make income in crypto through staking, you're going to pay income tax. Okay, there's no way around it. So what these people are saying is just flat out incorrect. And so I don't know what loopholes he's talking about. From my experience, they don't exist. From a lot of other people's experience, they don't exist. And it's not exactly 100% clear because crypto is somewhat complex as you get into it. How do you tax, a yield farming on a Bored Ape Yacht Club that you swap for another NFT that stakes into another yield? I mean, this stuff is not easy, and that's why a lot of us spend a lot of money on accountants to try to make sure that we're doing this all correctly. And so 99% of the crypto community pays taxes. You can, if you're not from the United States, something you can do is you can move to Singapore or Dubai and have your tax jurisdiction be there. But if you're from the United States, unless you announce your citizenship, you're on the
even
hook.
then though.
Well,
Even then,
if you've got over $2 million, even the exit tax is high. It's like 50% or something like that. I don't know what it is specifically, but the point is there's no way out of paying taxes, so you just pay them, right? And that's it. So I don't know what Biden's talking about.
well, I don't think he thought about this at all, quite frankly.
No, or whoever wrote it for him, or whatever.
So the interesting thing that I think about is I wonder how many of I'll pick on Brad Sherman and Pocahontas for a second. How many of their heavy hitting donors profited handily and heavily from trading crypto and were able? What they're not talking about is how many of their donors benefit from the current wash rule that hasn't been changed, that the current legislators have not changed, and that's where you can sell an asset that has gone down in value, benefit from the tax from the loss of selling it, and then reacquire it the same day. That's perfectly legal today.
Well,
Perfectly legal. And you know who lets it be legal? The Democrats and the Republicans let it be legal because they haven't legislated.
Tax loophole. That's just the way it is right now. I mean,
forgive the words that I'm choosing, but you understand that we have this ability legally. This is perfectly legal. And here we are. We have the people that make the laws telling us that they're spouting off about some crap that they have every power to change, but won't because they haven't been authorized to do so by their handlers. Plain as day.
No, I mean, yeah, and that is something you can do right now too. That can offset some of your gains, right? And
If you so choose, not financial advice, talk to your tax accountant and financial advisor first, please. Thank you.
yeah, no, absolutely. But like,
I don't want to go to
it's
jail.
still no. I mean, no, it's you can do that today. But like the issue is still, it's not a loophole. It just is what it is. Like when I hear
Exactly.
loophole, what I think is some sort of way to game the system, right? And there isn't. I mean, this stuff is, you know, it's the most frustrating part of crypto is figuring out your tax liability, and we all try really hard to do the best we can and make sure it's accurate.
The last thought I have on this is that when I look at what the administration is doing, they're just using words to plant just enough doubt in the mass's mind, the mind of the mass here, to think to themselves, you know what, this is just too much trouble. I'm not going to, you know, that is so effective. Quite frankly, I don't like it, but it's true.
It's a good
What
point.
I'm thankful for, though, is that there every day we wake up, there's more and more people that are like, wait a minute, hold up, something ain't right. Wait a minute, and they start to go in this other direction, and that's what this is designed to be. This program is designed to help be a catalyst, or to provide the right nudge that people who have arrived at a spot in their journey where they can benefit from such a nudge. And there are plenty of people that haven't, and I've learned not to waste my time thinking that I'm going to have any ability to change people's minds in that regard. So what I'm trying to say is that there's the as Raoul Paul would say, we're at a we're at this turning event, and that is magnificent in my opinion, because the pendulum is swinging the other way. Otherwise, we wouldn't be hearing about it from Congress. If it was no big deal and didn't matter, then they wouldn't. Like, trust me, there's 50,000 other things they would love to talk about. I bet Sherman is frustrated to the nth degree that he has to talk about this right now. That's probably equally as frustrating for him. Who knows? But I mean, who knows what these people actually think?
Yeah, and I mean, I could care less what's frustrating for them and what's not. But here's an idea for, uh, you know, the government. Why don't you cut spending? Why don't you quit worrying about stifling innovation and cut spending? That seems like a novel idea, right? Like what a thought, you know. And back to Brad Sherman for a second. What he's doing, what he's trying to do, is stifle innovation. I mean, there's tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, millions of people that own crypto, tens of thousands that work in the space, and these kind of comments from U.S. politicians are a net negative to innovation in this country, and it's disgusting. It really is, for the people that are supposed to represent the American people and their constituents. A lot of his constituents work in the crypto industry and own crypto. So I think we'll see that as long as your vote still counts, that this type of rhetoric from these elected officials won't be put up with very much longer, because a lot of people do own crypto because of all the benefits that it provides them. So they can talk all they want. Their donors can push them to try to slow this innovation down, move it out of the country. I think it's a mistake. They're going to do it anyway, but doesn't matter.
That's right. It doesn't. And one last thought is just, wouldn't it be interesting if there were a way to know how much foreign capital is flowing into the coffers of elected officials to try and, steer innovation out of the country for like foreign entity benefit? They talk all this smack about, or I'm just saying, wouldn't it be interesting to know, like, where's the transparency? If it's expected that my financial dealings are supposed to be fully transparent, so that the government can see into my dealings, then I find that it would be interesting to see into their dealings, because But
We should.
again,
We should.
rules for thee, but not for me is the way to summarize it there. And wouldn't it be great? And you better be careful how much wind you stir up when you're living in a house of cards.
Yeah, no, I mean
So
they should all be audited. I mean this is simple, right? But the different rules for them, there really are, and it's frustrating. But hey, all you can do is the best you can in whatever situation you're in. And I think you do a good job of kind of walking me off the cliff, Ted. I was about ready to go nuclear, but I didn't. It is. I just have to say it again. I mean, it's so frustrating.
oh, it's incredibly frustrating, man.
To
Jeez.
hear this, and then you're supposed to. The way this is supposed to work is you take risk, you do your homework, you make investments. The investments work. You pay a fair tax. You're proud to do that as an American, and you move on down the road. But more and more and more, it feels like, you take these risks. The loss is all mine. It's all mine, and the gain I share with people that are actively working against me. And that is frustrating. That is very frustrating. And it's hard to sit here and say, you could say, Josh, well, you can leave. Well, here's here's the thing, you really can't, and you shouldn't have to, right? Like this is the thing too. There's a lot of wealth that could be generated in crypto, and if they could work with people, here's the other thing I don't understand. Why not take an approach to where you encourage innovation that creates jobs, that creates taxable income, that brings more money in, right? Instead of attacking it from every angle. So I feel like that's a logical way to think about it, but I don't think these people work from a logical standpoint. They have interest. So here's another way to put this. When you make an investment, whether it's a hedge fund or a real estate deal or something, as an investor, your incentives have to be aligned with the general partners or the people running that. If your incentives aren't aligned, there's an issue. And so, are the American people's incentives aligned with the politicians today? And more, it's looking like that's not the case, right? And that's a huge problem, because we are investors in this country. We do it through taxes, we do it through our investments. And if the people running the country aren't acting in the interest that's aligned with their quote unquote investors or their citizens, then you got a problem.
That's right. So, in summary, here's what my hope is. I hope that people are smart enough to take a minute and realize that the talk and the walk aren't matching up. And like you have a choice. And we still live in a free society where we have, mostly free elections. I mean, depending on your viewpoint on that, I'm just saying we're still allowed to vote. And if you really give a crap, then vote and make your position known. I mean, that's really all we can do, quite frankly. I would also express your opinion to your local legislators. If enough people were to open their mouths and by proxy, or not by proxy, but in addition, furthermore, to open their wallets and say, we're going to put our financial support behind the candidates that give us or that align with the things that we care about, then the system gets to the system gets to play out, or the things get to play out like the system was designed to work. As people a lot smarter than me would say, there's no democracy without discourse. So we should welcome the discourse, even though it's not fun, perhaps. But what the current administration is doing is it's not discourse. It's flat out lying. I mean, anyway.
No. I think that's great. Call it what it is. It's lying, right? And you can obviously see. I'm sure you can see that we're passionate about this. And when you're passionate about something, it comes out whether you want it to or not. But there are a lot of good congressmen and women that are working, that our incentives as investors and citizens are aligned with that. So when I say they're whores, I don't mean they're all whores, right? Like these people, the Brad Shermans of the world. I mean, forget him, right? Like just just know that there are good people working, and there's a lot of us that are working with those people to try to make sure that we end up on the right side here, meaning that the United States remains a home for innovation and a place where people can participate and reward earn a reward for their investments and their businesses and everything they build, and not a place where you're treated like a criminal and a drug dealer or an organ harvester. So that being
Last
said,
thing I want to,
yeah,
one thing before we wrap it up. Last thing is that look at Pocahontas's legislative record. She's submitted or sponsored like hundreds of pieces of legislation, and I think exactly one has made it through to become law in the U.S. So the thing to remember is that blah blah, I'm a politician, blah 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 blah. Okay, whatever. The point I'm trying to get to is that it's one thing for people to talk about it, where what we've actually seen on the ground legislatively, there have been attempts to bring legislation forward. And the best news I saw recently was that Pocahontas and some other clown tried to reintroduce a bill that had that got a lot of people's attention, which I'm glad it did, because it woke a lot of sleepy crypto people up, and we're like, well, wait a minute, life's about to get hard for me. I better pay attention now. Okay, that's great. Thank you. In a roundabout way, I'm grateful that happened. What I'm trying to communicate, though, is that if this really was a problem, I mean, if people in the government really, really believe this was like a serious problem, there would be a lot more attempts to bring legislation into the fold for discussion to get through the process. I mean, it takes time to get these things through committees and all this. Get on the internet and Google it, how a bill becomes law. That's not for this discussion. The point I'm trying to make is that despite I think the only reason perhaps that the Pocahontas and the other clown even tried is that they know you got to think with a track record like that. The only time that she brings legislation to the table is she knows it's not going to work, but it satisfies the need that her constituents have. It's like she needs to be seen to be doing things, and that's just politics. It's theater. Okay. I mean, I can't change it. The point I'm trying to get to is that we haven't seen any real legislation come across, and it's one thing to talk about. It's one thing to talk about problems. It's another thing to actually try and legislate them or legislate to resolve them. That hasn't happened, and thank goodness. But I mean, that's just the way it is. This is all of politics. Politics is show business for ugly people. Okay, it's theater.
No, and that's a great point, and that's why people don't like politics, because it's not genuine, it's not real, it's a show, it's theater. But another thing too, I think the best thing the United States government could do is get out of the way, right? And that's something that, look, we welcome smart regulation that's been debated and thought about. Of course we do, right? We have to protect people from scammers, which there are a lot of that, but they're in every industry. I mean, they're in the e-commerce business, they're in the real estate business, they're in the crypto business, and regulation is something that should be thought about and should be implemented in a smart way. But in general, the best thing that could happen is all the government has to do with crypto is just get out of the way, right? That's how I kind of look at all this stuff. But how I look at it is irrelevant to what their agendas are. So anyway, passionate topic. This elicits a lot of strong emotions from people in the industry. But like Ted says, you got to remember it's all talk. And as we wrap this up, Ted and I aren't accounting experts. We're not financial experts. Talk to your own accountants. Continue to pay your taxes. I know 99% of people in crypto do. This isn't like some grand scheme where you can get out of doing this. Like, you don't get into crypto to get out of taxes. Like, it's quite the opposite. If you're successful in crypto, you have tax liabilities that you need to have an accountant help you figure out. That's with any business, with any investment, it's the exact same here. So, with all that said, let me flash our disclaimer here. If you get into these markets, you're doing so at your own risk. Ted and I aren't financial experts, or are we accountants? So please talk to them when you're considering all this. And if you have profitable trades, seek accounting experts to help you out with that you can pay the appropriate tax. So with that said, we'll wrap it up and we'll